Ready to light that fire by doing the things that make you come alive? Welcome to Health Raisers, a podcast for wise women. I'm your host, Dr. Nadine. I left a soul-crushing medical career full of bad news and evolved into a joyful health integration coach, helping hundreds of women find their healthy. You're more than your dress size. Stop putting up with toxic relationships, swallowing your true emotions, and sacrificing your mental health. Stop using your body as a battlefield. You're always giving. You deserve to put yourself first, not just for your sake, but for those you love. Wise women, let's make ourselves a priority right now. It's time to raise some health together. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to let you know that before you listen to this episode, if you have been a victim of domestic abuse, the content in this episode may be triggering. So I just want you to take good care of yourself and know that before diving in. Well, hello, wise women. Today, my guest is Karen Joy. Karen is a bespoke baker, author, Lions International member, ANFT certified forest bathing guide, and spiritual thought leader. Today, I have invited Karen to share her wisdom with us regarding mental health and managing stress, primarily through forest bathing. I've heard of it. I don't know a lot about it, and I can't wait to learn.
Hello, Nadine. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just dive in with what it is. What is forest bathing?
That's always where people want to start. And the first question I get is, do I need a bathing suit? The answer is no, you don't need a bathing suit. I'll tell you where that phrase comes from. First of all, okay. Forest bathing. So the practice as I guide is originated in Japan. And in Japan, the practice is known as Shinrin-yoku. That phrase translates into something like bathing in the forest air. Hence, in English, we call it forest bathing.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So that's
I've talked about the origins. So what exactly is involved in forest bathing?
So it really is the practice of reconnecting in nature. In what the hope is that you're in a healthy forested environment, because there's a lot of research. The practice originated in the 1980s in Japan. And there's a lot of research decades now of how our bodies physiologically respond. But I've also noticed how we spiritually and emotionally and mentally respond. So there is some research on that as well. There are several studies on the health benefits of what happens when we step outside. In fact, you probably feel it when you step outside of your house on a nice day. Mm-hmm. Even if you're in a city, just taking a breath of air that's not been contained in this beautiful box that we live in, or whatever container your home is. The practice in Japan, what they found was in the 80s, their population was getting very sick. Chronic disease and illness rates were higher than they'd ever seen. And the government started to look into it and instead tasked a bunch of researchers and asked them to try and figure out what the heck was going on. And one beautiful and intelligent soul, and I don't know who it was or when it happened, said, what happened when we go back out into nature? And they started to study it. And now it is actually a part of their national healthcare program in Japan. So this practice is usually 3 to 4 hours long. It's guided because we have a tendency to be bouncing off the walls and thinking about things that we have to do and checking our phones and checking our emails. And we're constantly bombarded, sensory input from all over the place. And so it's really difficult for us to slow down, number one,
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, to actually remain present in the moment. And that's how you get the fullest benefit of the practice. And so I have met people who have read a book and they'll go out into the woods and they've done their own guided practice using a book. You can certainly do that. The practice as I lead it, the general practice is about 2 hours long. I do a very introductory practice because most people can't make space for a 3 or 4 hour long session.
Okay.
It's hard enough for them to make a 2 hour session. So I found pretty quickly in my practice that I needed to make it shorter because you want people to get engaged and to get outdoors and to be able to slow down. But you don't want to take up too much of their time that they can't make it out there. So that's kind of how the practice originated. And what I often get asked is, well, what does it look like? What actually do you do? Mm-hmm. And that's where the guide comes in. So I'll just tell you sort of the steps that we take. What we do is I search for locations that have a really healthy environment where I know that you're going to be safe. That's one thing the certified guide is trained in, is to look for hazards in the environment. We keep you safe. We are all ANFT certified guides are all trained in wilderness first aid. So if something should happen to you, we know how to respond to that.
Okay.
And keep you healthy. And then I welcome you with some hospitality, just some basics. You know, if you know how to turn off your phone and you're willing to do so, we invite you to do that. There's no right or wrong way to do the practice. That's the really cool thing. There are certain ways of doing it that allow you to go deeper and to get the most benefit, but you can't really do it wrong. If you're getting outdoors, you're experiencing some of the benefits.
And now, here's an ad from our sponsor. In the mood for coffee, tea, yummy pastries, or cool swag? My friends at Infusco have got you covered. Infusco Coffee Roasters is a cozy neighborhood coffee joint in Sawyer and St. Joseph, Michigan. Infusco stands for a healthy community. They craft irresistible seasonal drinks, sourcing local artisans' products. The flavors shine from quality ingredients, and their beans are roasted on site. They do not hide behind tons of sugar. Every time I go, I'm greeted by my name with a smile. Bad service is just non-existent. It feels like stepping into a friend's living room. They keep it personal. Old school, eclectic coffee mugs on the wall, fun merch, including stickers designed by artists, t-shirts, and sweatshirts. It's the perfect place to get to know your neighbors and chat with tourists. You will always find people deep in conversation. Special events keep it fresh. Community. Health, the heart of Sawyer. That's Infusco. I hope to meet you there. So one of the things that I'm thinking about as you're talking is, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners would be wondering too, is the level of physical dexterity. Is there a particular threshold that's required? I mean, do you have to be an athlete to participate?
Absolutely not. The nice thing about the practice is it's open to all levels of fitness and ability. And as long as you let your guide know if you have mobility issues or if you have trouble standing for any period of time or you need to have a seat, there are ways to accommodate. And then we just look for the right location for the level of fitness and ability of our participants. So normally I send out a brief questionnaire prior to any session if you've never been in a session with me before, just so I have a basic awareness of what your health looks like. You know, how is your body? And what do I need to be aware of in order to keep you comfortable and safe and allowing the experience to unfold for you in a way that makes you comfortable? Because you don't want to be uncomfortable. That would pop you right out of the experience and you wouldn't get all the benefits.
So is there room, generally speaking, for planned pausing so that people can take breaks, even if they don't necessarily, quote unquote, need to?
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing about the practice. It's not a hike. It's not we aren't going out and identifying things in nature. We're not building up our cardiovascular system. We're not getting the heart pumping. It is not that at all. In fact, most people find the practice of slowing down and stillness to be harder in most cases than going for a hike, right? So what we do is I help you slow down by guiding you through normally it's a standing meditation, but if you have no ability to stand, that's okay too. Of course, we accommodate all fitness levels and abilities. And I'll guide you through your senses. And that's dropping you in. So for example, you're going to at first be asked to close your eyes, because those of us who are sighted have this, beautiful gift, but also sometimes it's a crutch. And so when we close our eyes, we're removing 80% of our sensory input. 80% of what we take in as sighted individuals comes in through our eyes. And so when we close them, whole new worlds open up. You can hear things that you weren't noticing before. You can feel things and sense things that you didn't know were there because you were so focused in on filtering all of the information coming in through your vision, through your eyes. So I walk you through all your senses. We drop down into the heart space and we start to tune into the rhythms of our own body and then slow to the rhythms of nature. Now, we're never going to go quite as slow as nature does, but we need to slow our bodies down and get a little bit of rest and a little bit of a rhythm reset. That can be really helpful for people. So that's the beginning. That's the beginning of the practice. I'll introduce you to the space. I'll invite you to know where things are, like the restroom and first aid supplies, make you comfortable, and then I'll guide you in. And as I'm guiding you in, I'm slowing you down, both with the tone, the pace, the rhythm of the place. The motion as we move through it is very slow. And after that guided meditation, I always do something that we as guides call noticing what's in motion. So the practice is a lot about just noticing, and noticing through all the senses, not just through vision. And so we then go on a very slow walk, an uncomfortably slow walk. And what that looks like is, I might say, imagine what a slow walk is for you. And now imagine going at 10% of that speed. And then we start to move. And we start to notice what else is in motion, whether it's motion within the body, motion within the mind, or motion outside of the body, whether it's below you or next to you or above you. You just begin to tune in to things that are happening around you. And we come together. So these are usually small groups that I lead, anywhere from 1 to, I've had as many as 22 people in a group. And then we always come together for a circle of sharing. And there's no right or wrong way. There's no requisite to do it. You don't have to share if you don't feel called to share. But the prompt is always just, what are you noticing? And so it's really interesting sometimes to hear where other people are, what they're tuning into, what are they noticing around them, what are they noticing is changing within, how are their thoughts changing, what feelings are showing up for them. Sometimes it's memories. Sometimes it's a slow process of opening back up to relationship, to ourself and to each other and to the more than human world. And so we then go on to a series of, again, we call them invitations, a series of prompts, I'll say, to engage and interact in the natural world in a way that you probably haven't done since you were really small, if ever. So exploring texture, for example. So I might invite you to explore, what does something feel like? Not just with the front of your hand, which we're used to doing, but maybe what does it feel like to place your cheek against the bark of a tree? Or what does it feel like to touch the earth with your forearm? Or maybe what does it feel like to go barefoot in the woods?
So it's really about being in your body and really noticing nuances, both internally and externally. It sounds like meditation to me. You know, I'm a yoga teacher, so it sounds like a lot like different forms of meditation.
Very much so. Yes.
What would you say people find the hardest about the practice?
Slowing down is number one.
Okay.
Slowing down is absolutely number one. And as a guide, I have to be tuned in to what's happening. If you're a yogic practitioner, you understand this as well, that you have to tune in to what's happening with the participants in your group. How are they engaging with the practice? What's coming up for them? And that's why the circles of sharing are important for the guide. It's great for me to know, is your brain keeping you out of the practice? Is something going on in your head that I can maybe give you a prompt that will allow you to let that calm, let that slow down, or maybe even step away from it for a moment. So I am always tuning in to what is happening with the participants and how I can guide them deeper if they're ready to go deeper.
So do you notice any trends, without generalizing and without sounding reductive, between generations?
Yeah, I've had children all the way on up to adults. There is some difference, but not enough for me to call it out. What I will say that I notice with everyone is that as they go through the process, as they go through this 2 to 3 hour session with me, they are initially very like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Mm-hmm. And I am intentionally slowing them. And you'll notice I do it when I speak. There are intentional pauses. There are intentional ways of just slowing that we can practice to bring people in, to welcome them in to a different rhythm of life. And that's where we begin to engage with that spiritual component, the emotional component, that opens the heart space. I've seen it happen for a lot of times. What I will tell you is there is a difference with gender identifying people. So when we have a group that has a mix of a lot of binary men and women, what I notice is the men are very closed. The women I tend to be very open. But by the end of it, we're all at the same level of openness. And it's a progression that happens because I think these are taught behaviors.
I was just about to say that. So you're giving everyone the opportunity just to be a person without the social constructs, without feeling hampered in any way by those narratives. What about weather? Because I think what tends to happen, and especially in my experience as a yoga teacher and hearing other people talk about this in any of these types of meditative practices of slowing down, it almost seems like the expectation from the practitioner is something idyllic. So it has to be on a mountaintop. It has to be in a space where it's perfectly quiet and I'm perfectly sitting still for 20 to 60 minutes. Otherwise, I have quote unquote failed. So when I'm thinking of forest bathing, I'm thinking of it would have to be on a gorgeous, sunny, windless day, so what would you say about the weather?
So it's all in the framing of it. So number one, I always make sure that it's weather that's not going to cause us to be unsafe.
Okay.
But
fair.
If it's raining, I will still go out and lead a session. If it's cold, I will lead a session. If it's windy, I will lead a session. If it's not safe, I won't.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so again, I have to sort of guess at, I have to follow the weather and kind of guess at, are we in a safe space or are we not in a safe space? And then it's all in the framing when participants arrive. I do find that people tend to not want to go outdoors if it's raining or if it's cold or if it's cold and raining combined. Completely makes sense. And I always allow for that. But I also invite them to consider the possibilities that might show up when there's a little bit of discomfort or when nature is showing some of the things that we may think of as unpleasant. Mm-hmm. Can we spin those into something truly magical and really pleasant and offering us a new opportunity to engage? So I did this one session on Earth Day, and Earth Day is in April 22nd every year. And so we never know in Michigan what's going to happen on April 22nd.
We sure don't.
It could be sunny, it could be warm. I had one year, this was about 3 years ago. It was cold and raining. And it was pretty unpleasant, from I'm a human being and I want to be warm and cozy and I want to be in my house. I don't want to be wet. But I did the session. I had 3 people in the session who braved the weather. We had our raincoats and our umbrellas and it was very chilly. And as a guide, I always try to have extra, here's some more gloves, here's some more socks, whatever you need. And we went out there. And for all of those who did participate, they all just had these deep spiritual, emotional experiences because they were being challenged by the weather and we were engaging with the rain. We were noticing how water was showing up for us. And that had, for one participant in particular, memories came up for her of when her children, who are now grown and away from home, when they were kids, they would go out and play in the rain. And how she would engage with them in that practice when they were children and how she missed that. And so when you narrow what you're allowing for yourself by not saying, I'm going to go out and do this thing that I think might not feel great, you really might miss out on something truly magical.
I want to switch gears here a little bit because you do have a multifaceted biography and experience. So your work seems to me to be rooted in simplicity and connection, whether it's nature, whether it's baking, crafting. What would you say to our listeners as to how to incorporate daily practices to ease and manage stress?
So this is something that I thank you for this question, Nadine, because this is something that I think is truly foundationally important for us as beautiful, divine human beings. Every single one of us, no matter who you are, where you are, how you identify as a human, we are all a beautiful spark of creation. And no matter what your faith or religious or non-religious beliefs are, there's something that makes your heart beat. There's something that makes your brain work, right? And so to bring this into your everyday, I would just invite your listeners to begin to think about how can we hold each moment as sacred, as a truly beautiful and unique and divine moment, because it is, and you are. And I know it's really hard for us to believe that sometimes because we hear stories or we've been told things and we wind up thinking that it's true. But perhaps it's not true. And perhaps you are so very special. And every experience that you have, you're the only one that can have that experience. You get to do this. And no matter what restrictions you think you have, you still have a tremendous number of choices in front of you at any moment of any day. Mm-hmm. To me, that's incredible. And if you can get yourself in that space of recognizing it and seeing how precious you are, that is just a beautiful thing. And trust me, it takes practice. I don't get to think like this and be like this every moment of every day. If I did, I probably would have already been done with my human journey, right? Like, I've done it all. I have nothing more to learn here. But I think we're all here to have that experience of practicing, remembering, and then going out and experiencing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I can give you a tool. If your audience is into tools, here's a very simple tool. Take 60 seconds in the morning. Find yourself a spot where you can find something of nature, whether it's sitting outdoors, looking at a tree, looking out a window, looking at a houseplant, or even a pet. Whatever you have available to you, take 60 seconds every day to just be with that, noticing your relationship to it. Just noticing, just being. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Set a timer, and then maybe the next week you go to 2 minutes. Maybe you take 5 minutes. Maybe you really like it and you want to do it for a little bit longer. Do whatever feels right for you. But that's a tool that you can use where you just sit. In our guiding practice as a nature therapy guide, we call it the sit spot. And at the end of every session that I lead, I always invite you to sit and do nothing. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. It is time and space for you to just be.
Okay, beautiful. My next question, with your farming, your organic farming, I am curious to find out what you touched upon this before, but I want to tease it out a little bit more in this context. You deal with a lot of uncertainty when you're farming, the rhythms and the challenges of the earth. What has contending with those challenges taught you about managing stress and maybe embracing uncertainty?
Oh, you learn a lot of resiliency. You really do. I'll tell you this story. I had a CSA program, which is community supported agriculture. And I was supporting, I want to say the number was like 350. I had 350 subscribers. I had this beautiful bed of romaine lettuce. Beautiful. You could just look down this row and you're like, oh yeah, we got lettuce for days. It's gorgeous. I sent my crew out. I said, okay, I think it's time to harvest the romaine. They went out and came back a few minutes later and said, Karen, there's no lettuce. I said, what do you mean? I can see like the green leaves from here. What are you telling me? They said, you got to come see this. I walk out there and the deer had come down that row, that bed of lettuce. This is 200 feet long and about 4 feet wide, with it's planted like four plants wide. They had eaten the hearts out of every single one of those plants. Right down to the center, you could see that beautiful little like sunburst center. And I was like, wow.
Oh no.
So I was like, well, I guess I better share this story with my customers. So I took pictures and I let them know why they weren't going to get romaine lettuce that day. And yeah, you really don't know what's going to happen. But the funny thing is, you always have something. There's always something that's growing that you can harvest that the earth is offering up. And maybe for them, it wasn't romaine lettuce. Maybe they didn't need romaine lettuce that day. Maybe they needed more chestnuts. Maybe there was something else that the earth was offering. But you begin to notice we kind of push the earth a little bit. We push her and we push her in a direction we think we want. But who's really in charge? The earth is really in charge. And she's going to make that decision. I'm going to call her a she. I apologize to anyone if I hope I don't offend anyone with that. But we have a tendency to call her our mother. And I kind of think of her that way. And she's always providing, and she's provides so much, Nadine. And I think we've forgotten, because we don't have the traditions anymore of eating acorns like the native tribes did. And we don't have the ability to see what's edible around us, because we're now informed only by the box store that lines the shelves with the beautiful peppers that are all the same size and the same shape. And so I think, yeah, we're beginning to challenge that. I know that there's been a movement for a long time. And when I started farming, it was 2009. And there's been a movement for a long time of people recognizing that maybe monoculture and maybe big ag was not the best decision. And that maybe there are other ways that we can have a relationship with the earth as she provides for us in her own balanced way.
So is it fair to say that you use a sense of humor and wonder and awe in order to deal with challenging situations in this context?
Those are all beautiful words for it. Yes. I always engage with a smile and joy in my heart, because I've been through a lot of challenges in my life. If you were to look at me now, you'd say, oh, this is a girl who came from a middle-class white background and she's always had everything she ever needed, blah, blah, blah. But, life gives us challenges no matter what our path is, whether we are well off or not well off. How we choose to respond is entirely up to us. And so I've learned that responding with love and kindness, no matter what situation I'm in, is always the best answer. Love and kindness and honesty with myself and honesty with others. And that did land me in prison. If you've read my blog, I'm not shy about it. And it was probably one of the most jarring experiences in my life. I'm a girl who never got in trouble. I just followed the rules, did what people told me to do, and didn't ever consider that there was a possibility, that I could do something that was so wrong that I would go to prison. So it was a long-term development. I was in an abusive relationship I didn't realize I was in, because it was emotionally and psychologically abusive. I was being controlled in more ways than I was aware of. And it took, on the farm, we got a USDA value-added producer grant. So it's a federal grant. And it was for $200,000. And it was, the way these things work is what was really tricky. So my ex-partner, who was the sort of manipulator, he always got what he wanted. And he had no budgetary control. And I didn't have that either, because I wasn't allowed to. And so we got this grant, and the way it works is you're supposed to spend the money, and then you get 50% of it reimbursed through submitting receipts or whatever, checks, invoices, that kind of thing. And my partner had spent all the money before the contract with the government even started. That is not allowed. And so, it was sort of this out of control thing. And he didn't understand how the grant worked, and neither did I. And my name was on everything, and I signed off on everything. And so when things were submitted for reimbursement that were not under that contract period, he would change the dates, and say, oh yeah, it was under the contract period, blah, blah, blah. Well, the only reason that the government even started to look into our grant was because we had a disgruntled employee who wanted a piece of it, who thought we just got this chunk of money, but really what we had to do was spend $400,000 to get $200,000 back. So that was what happened. And because he was intelligent and wise, his name wasn't on anything. It was all me. So I stood up in front of that judge, and it took my lawyer 2 years to figure out that I was in an abusive relationship. It took her 2 years to break me down, because I just kept saying, it's all my fault and I'm sorry. It's all my fault and I'm sorry. What can I do to make it right? That's what I was programmed to do. I was programmed to figure out how to make it right. And it was all me. It was all me. And so now I am, this practice of forced bathing came about because I was looking for a healing practice several years ago after I got out of jail, after prison. It wasn't jail, it was prison. And my therapist, I have a really good therapist, and she knew that I had a really deep connection with nature just being on the farm. And I recognized how important that was to me. And then I heard about this practice, and I was like, oh, this is it. So I added it to the many things that I do, because I think it's so, so important to connect. Because what I realized now, looking back at my whole situation, is that I had been unplugged from my life by this person, slowly and intentionally unplugged from my family, my friends. I was isolated. I'll never forget a moment where he threatened my life. I thought I was going to die. I thought he was going to kill us both. And I got away from him, and I had my phone in my hand, and I could not dial it. I couldn't call him. I was in fear. I was in terror, but I was programmed that I could not call my mom. I couldn't call my sister. I couldn't call anybody.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. How weird. Such a weird place to be, because I'd always just been this joyful, like, life is great, and no matter what happens, we're going to do it. We're going to get through it. And that was hard. That was a hard lesson for me. But I did it. And now I'm like, girl, I've been in prison. I'm like Martha Stewart. I'm OG. And then people meet me and they're like, what?
I know. I did not expect that story, but this is why I love connecting. Because people, my mom loves to say, you just really never know what's going on with people behind their closed doors and just generally. And yeah, you just never really know. I've been learning that more and more.
That's why we have to hold everyone with compassion and give them grace. And, even if they're treating you really badly, maybe something's going on, maybe there's a reason for that behavior. Because when we learn and grow into being sacred centered beings again, capital S sacred, right? When we get back to that space, then we begin to see everyone is a beautiful, sacred, and divine being. And that is what that experience of going to prison taught me. And that
and
experience.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, and what about, you're saying being connected to other people? Do you think being in nature also reinforces that connection, not just with the earth, but do you think it might reinforce the connection with others?
It does. It does, because we begin to see ourselves as not separate. And it starts to break down those walls of separation that are all around us every time we slap a label on something or identify something, right? So the practice is all about removing separation, removing the labeling, and beginning to see with what they call in Buddhist studies, the beginner's mind. Mm-hmm. That you've never been here before. This is the very first time you're ever having this experience. And that's true for every moment of your life, is it not?
Well, what if it's hard for you to, I can speak from personal experience. My programming, which has been very difficult to or deprogram, has been to have the answer, to be right. You're not allowed to not know the answer. You're not allowed to make mistakes. You need to be ready all of the time. How does one release that way of thinking?
I would say one way to let that go is to teach yourself to pause. Because when that arises in you, that need to fulfill and heal or fix or know, that's usually, would you say it's an immediate something that rises up in you?
It's programmed, so it's not something that's at the forefront of it's a habit. It's repeated, so it's become reinforced over 50 years.
Yeah, it takes a long time for that programming, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to take a long time for you to deprogram. Just know that, and don't be hard on yourself. Number one, if it took this long and you've been practicing it for years, decades, it's going to take a while to let that go and to change that programming. But the place to start is the pause. If you can teach yourself to pause between whatever's coming in at you and then how you outwardly respond, right? And recognize and call out in yourself what it is that's happening when that response comes up. And then sit with it for a moment. Say hello to it. Ask it why it's there. What is it serving when it's popping up like that? And is it serving you well? Maybe it's not. And you'll know that for yourself. But the practice is the pause.
Okay. A slight pivot. You're also a person who embraces creativity. My daughter has always loved to bake. She was a little girl, and she still loves doing it because it is presence, it's figuring things out, it's precision, it's the ability to use her hands and craft something lovingly at the end of a process, to share with other people. How do you tap into your creativity to work through moments of stress or overwhelm?
Yeah, creativity is my number one. And I have several different things that I do. I sew. I do a lot of hand sewing. And I also bake. And for me, there's something about the rhythm of getting your kitchen cleaned down and prepping and getting everything laid out and seeing this. I have this Metro shelf in the kitchen that just has all the ingredients, all the different things I can play with. And I have these basic recipes that are blank canvases, shortbread cookies, for example, butter, flour, sugar. That's it. That's all that's in them. And then you can play. You can add citrus. You can add spice. You can add like herbs. You can really go to town with just this really basic recipe. And it's the same when I decide to do anything creative. But what I will say is really interesting about me is I have to have space above my head when I do these things. There's something about not having a low ceiling, that I have to have this, I have to have this space above my head. Now, in my kitchen, I don't have high ceilings. I live in a really old farmhouse, but there's something about having that cleaned down and open and ready, and when I get in there and I bake, I'll bake for 16 hours. And by the end of it, I'm like, oh, my feet hurt. I wonder why. So that's getting in the flow. You've heard that before, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Getting in the flow, and it turns off time. You're doing the thing that you love and that is bringing you the most passion in that moment, and you're following it to the best of your ability, and it's bringing you joy, and you're going to get to share that joy with others in a way that, just allows you to sit back and say, yes, right? Eat some of my joy. Have some of that. Everybody needs a little bit of that.
But
the nice thing is, as a mother, Nadine, the best thing you can do for your daughter when she's getting in that baking space is just love and support her. Give her the tools she needs to do it and the time.
She does.
And space. Like, that's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
If we did that for all children, now I don't have children myself. It wasn't in the cards for me, but if all children had that, imagine what a different world we'd live in. How cool is that?
So I think we're touching upon community. You say that all of your endeavors, farming, artistry, baking, leading, guiding people through forest bathing, would you say that building of community impacts your mental health?
100% yes. Humans do not thrive or survive alone.
But yet we have easily isolating practices, the phone, streaming services. It's so easy to just go hole up and be on your own. And it's hard to leave that behind. Someone might say, 2 hours? That sounds so boring. How am I going to make it? I mean, people can't even have dinner. And I'm guilty of this sometimes. Like, I might spend some time with my husband out eating, but inevitably, one of us will pull the phone out just to check something. And it's always, I have to check what the work emailer, and when he does that, I'm like, well, I may as well pull mine out and check my email, at the same time. What would you say to someone about the reluctance or the skepticism to be able to, or lack of desire to disconnect?
So hard. It's so hard. So we're in a culture here in the United States where, and I'm sure there are other cultures like this as well, but I'm not as familiar with them. But we're in a culture of separation. And what that does is it disempowers all of us. And when you hear that, let that sink in. When you have separation, when you are on your phone and not engaging with whoever's in the room with you right now, or whoever's in your home or in the business that you're in or in your community. Just think about those people just for a moment. Wherever you are right now listening to this. And think about what would happen if you actually spent some time connecting rather than being in separation. And then I would challenge you to try it once. Just once. To be in a place, a public space, or even your business or your home, wherever you are, try just connecting again without technology. And I know it sounds impossible, but guess what? Cell phones haven't been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been very effective at becoming addictive.
They are. And computers are too. Computers are not even that old. I mean, I like to joke that I think I'm older than the internet. There's still quite a few of us who are around that are, older than the internet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so what I challenge communities to do is to find a way that you feel comfortable doing that allows you to engage and connect again, whether it be with one person, a friend, a family member. Rather than texting, can you pick up the phone and call them and hear their voice? Or can you invite them out for tea or coffee? Can you make space and time to begin to repair those relationships that are all suffering because we're stuck behind our phones, we're stuck inside our houses, we're trapping ourselves inside of technology. And technology is great. I'm not a crazy person who says don't have technology. I love it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It keeps us connected. My whole family, my brother and sister live in LA now. I can't just get together and have a tea or a coffee with my sister. I have to connect with her through a phone. And FaceTime and other things allow me to do that so I get to see her. But I also would challenge you to try to repair those relationships. Is there somebody in your phone that you consider a friend that you have not spoken to, who you haven't heard their voice in a month or a year? And can you pick up the phone and call them? You will be surprised the reaction you will get when they answer the phone. I did this recently, just in the last 6 months. I called a friend of mine that I haven't spoken to, but I consider her a dear friend. We used to celebrate our mid-birthday. Hers was in November, mine in September. So we had an October party. And we hadn't done it in a decade. And I just called her. And she was like, I can't believe you're calling me. This is so great. And I'm like, yeah, why don't we do this more often? We just have to, it's a tiny bit of effort. It feels really impossible and hard. And I don't know why it feels impossible and hard, but you can do it. I think and you're going to feel so much better when you do.
I think it's easier to just kind of be distracted constantly. Okay. I have immensely enjoyed this conversation. I've learned so much. I've taken so much away from our conversation, and I'm sure my listeners have too. Karen, where can our listeners find you?
The easiest place is I have a website. It's naturetherapymi.com. And I also have an email. It's just Karen@naturetherapymi.com. Reach out to me there. I have a little blog and I put my events there. And that'll also link you out to like the Facebook page and the Instagram and all of that other good stuff. But the website's the number one spot.
Perfect. I want to thank you for being here. And I have one more question for you. What is your personal definition of what it means to be healthy?
Number one is to be spiritually grounded, whatever that means for you. That's where it starts. Remember who you are. You are not this body. You're not even this mind. You are spirit. You are divine and you are sacred. And your experience is beautiful and necessary and important. No matter where you are in the world, no matter what you're doing, you are truly beautiful. It starts there. And from there, you have the foundation to support your beautiful experience through this body, tuning into it, recognizing its needs, listening to it. It's your partner in this journey. Don't forget about your beautiful body. No matter what it looks like, what color, shape, or size it is, being in touch with it as your partner on this journey, listening to it, talking to it. I do this thing in the shower where I tell my body I love it. I love you, body. I love you, body. I love you, body. I love you, body. Do that. It feels weird, but your body responds. And then do whatever you feel. Yeah. Because it's all going to come from joy when you start there.
That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you once again. And yeah.
Thank you, Nadine. I so appreciate you and everyone listening. Thank you. Thank you all.
Wise women, move from last place to first place in your life. Stop using your body as a battlefield. Let's raise health together with a customized health plan just for you. Contact me at npkhealthintegration.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.